Hi everybody, welcome back to the shop. Well, this video is going to be different than my normal content. I think I'm going to do a little spin-off series on one of my project vehicles I have going on. It's a 99 GMC full-size truck. It's four-wheel drive. It's got a lot of miles on there, something like 275-ish thousand miles. And why in the world would you waste your time and money? Well, I already own the truck, so no matter what I put in there, there's no payments each month. For the most part, all the parts are really cheap, readily available, and I would say, well, they say the truck's easy to work on, but I've done quite a bit of things to it and nothing so far has been easy. Most recent issue I had was I had the ABS module go out. I'll do a whole nother talk on that and explain how much that was a nightmare, even though every video watches 4 screws comes off easy. Was not the case for me. Anyhow, I replaced the module and my brakes are basically locked. Well, turns out my calipers in the rear are stuck. They're frozen. We got to replace them completely. Well, in that regards, I wanted to upgrade the brakes, but a basic brake upgrade is just new rotors and better pads. Well, I'm going to get all new calipers. I have new rotors and all brand new, basically a whole kit. So I'm going to go ahead and open the boxes behind me here and show you what kind of an upgrade kit I got. Basically, the kit I got is what they would consider like a heavy-duty tow. Don't know if I'll ever tow, but I may. My plan always was to be able to pull a trailer with it. So why not go the best rather than do a little bit and then regret you didn't go the highest. Now, the caveat with all of that, though, is honestly, my original plan was there are some really nice brake upgrades you can do. One of which is you're just buying factory parts from a newer model of GMC, and the newer models came with larger rotors, better calipers. The problem with that is on my truck, I have the factory 16-inch wheels. Well, the big brake upgrade kit, as some people might call it, the rotors are larger, they won't fit on my rims, so you'd be forced to get new rims, so it's like more money, more money, more money. So I'm trying to do things as cheaply, but yet give me the exact results I want. So this is a heavy-duty upgrade kit, bolt-on kit. Let's get to it. Here you go. Here's what the calipers are going to look like. They're red, powder coated. Now this is an option. When you get this kit, this is extra money, so you don't have to get red, but why not? And here we are with the rear rotors. As you can see, they are drilled, they are slotted. Now I know there's lots of controversy, but on drill, a lot of people talk about cracking between, but we'll see. I haven't heard anything bad about this particular kit, but in general, that's a lot of times what people complain about. But definitely a major upgrade for my truck. Obviously, these are the rear. You can tell by how big this is because of the emergency brake shoe rides on the inside here. Alright, and there's the fronts. Apparently there is some kind of special coating on here that resists corrosion, which is nice. So we'll see how well that plays out long term. Now you can probably obviously guess what this is going to be. Now these calipers are going to be a little bit bigger for the front because they're dual piston. The rears are only single. going to look a lot nicer, more beefy. Look at that. So got your dual piston. These come with all stainless steel hardware. However, with all the powder coating, that's going to help with corrosion also. And these are pre-installed apparently. They already put the pins in for you. I'm going to check them anyways though and make sure they lubed them up really good, but it's safe to assume they did. Okay, step one, we got to jack it up. And of course, make sure we got jack stands. There's just enough clearance. I should be able to get the tire off. I don't know if these jack stands can go any higher. That is a problem with a 4x4 truck. You almost need to get blocks if you are lifted in any way. Okay, well, I don't know how much narration I'm going to do since, as a disclaimer, you know, I am not a licensed technician, not a mechanic. Been doing my own repairs for a majority of my life, it seems like. So I just want to provide you any tips, maybe a little entertainment, just give you a little idea of what to expect when doing this job. Okay, for this particular truck, I don't know how many others are the same. 22 millimeters of socket you'll need. I already broke these loose before I fully jacked it up. Obviously, if you have an impact, and I do have air, it didn't feel like dragging the hose all the way out. I've taken this wheel off so many times, it's really not that big a deal. All right, before we go any further, we want to remove the cap on the brake reservoir and make sure you got plenty of brake fluid handy. My plan is to try to completely flush the system and get rid of all the old gunk. Now I bought 2 bottles. This is a synthetic. Just feel like it'd be better than just your standard. Stuff's dirt cheap, so even at synthetic you can get for like $7 at Walmart. Okay, we got that ready, and we're gonna have to keep monitoring this just to help prevent injecting any air into the system. At the calibers, it shouldn't be an issue. It's getting air into the ABS. That's what we want to avoid. I don't have a computer in order to flush it, and I'm not comfortable doing what I would refer to as the redneck version, and that's people have said you can drive on a loose gravel road and slam on the brakes. I don't think that's advisable in order to force the ABS to push air out. I've done my best to set this up so you can see what I'm doing. It's taken me forever just to get the camera to stop falling over, so I'm not sure how much more of these in close shots I will be able to show you, but we'll go with this for now. First thing seems logical. Let's get the main feed line off of here. And as you can see, fluid's going to start dripping out, but that's okay in our case. I know what you're probably thinking, a lot of you, and I should have replaced these lines, and maybe I will in the future. For now, I just need to get the basics done so I can get this vehicle back on the road. Actually, all right, it is what it is. Let that just keep dripping. Yeah, I probably should have gotten some new hardware on these banjo bolts. It's always recommended to get new ones, but when we do the brake lines, we'll do that. Okay, yes, 18 millimeter bolts. If I had mentioned the banjo bolt was an 11 millimeter. Now we need an 18 millimeter for the calipers themselves. Now I've taken this caliper off before, so it's a little bit easier. My understanding is these are torqued pretty high and generally have Loctite on them. Now mine came off pretty easy, so was a little suspicious that the previous owner what might have gone on, because based on what I've seen online, I should not have been able to pull these out so easy. Now what I will tell you, when I did this before, when I was trying to determine if the calipers were bad, this thing was on so tight, kind of as it is now. Okay. Yeah, I tried to free this before, and I think I may have seized it back up. So now I need to go get a pry bar to pull this caliper off. See if it gives me the same amount of trouble as last time. Okay. One thing I don't know if you'll be able to see here. One tip on determining if your caliper is stuck. Notice how much this side is worn. They're worn uneven, in other words. That's an indication that your piston's stuck open, because that means it's constantly pushing on this inner pad. That's why that one's worn more. So actually, this has been stuck for quite some time. And I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning, but one thing that happened to me was my brakes gave out one time. I was on the freeway, and that's when I ended up just parking the truck. And I realize now what probably happened was I was having brake fade, and they were just overheating. There's no brake pad left, just metal on metal. Okay. At least this side's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, on the other side when I took it off, I believe I'm going to need to have the bearings replaced. Axle bearings, sorry. I'm like thinking and talking at the same time. I'm realizing that this emergency brake is going to need to be replaced soon too. But like I said, I just need to get this on the road. So let's get what's imperative right now, because who really uses e-brakes? So yeah, okay. Next step, let's clean this area up, and then we'll bring over the new hardware. Here we go, we got the rotor. Let's get that put on. And I'm not going to adjust the parking brake right now, if you're wondering. We'll save that later on, because they need to be replaced. So what's the point, really? I don't think I'll be able to adjust them enough to make any difference. Now here's our caliper. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to put in the hardware and the pads. It makes more sense to do that now. This one looks like it's pushed all the way in, but a good tip would be to make sure you push this in ahead of time. That'll help minimize the amount of air that might already be trapped inside of here. Okay, that looks seated. If you can see, it's the bottom side, it's the inside. Nice thing is these are basically the same, so they're not directional. Yeah, I'm not sure you can see. Just fighting a little bit. This middle part kind of fights with you getting it in, but they just clip right in. You might have to move the cage a little bit here and there, but I got a cap on it and it's sealed, so it's not going to move very much because there's pressure built up inside. Okay, now let's put the pads in. Okay, well, one nice thing is these pads are identical. Doesn't matter. Both sides have the metal shim, so it doesn't really matter which side goes in. Typically, when you get pads, only one of them will have a piece of metal, and that's the part that's going to ride against the piston of your caliper. So in this case, man, talk about foolproof. Now here's the point where most people, what you want to do is you want to put a little bit of this brake stuff, goop, whatever you call it, on just the ears, the part that's going to slide. Now with stainless steel, I don't know if it's as important, but it's a good idea to do it anyways. Pads are in. Oops. Oops is never a good thing to say, right? And let's put this on here. Okay, I'm going to use blue Loctite, so it's only a semi-permanent. Now let's get our banjo bolt. Because of what I'm doing, I should be replacing everything, especially the washer. It is said that, you know, once you cramp down,
once you've locked down on these banjo washers, they kind of form a perfect fit and could tend to leak when you reinstall them like this. So, like I said, this is just to get us back on the road.
Okay, well, I need to stop this video because it's become an epic fail. And if you ever look in a dictionary under Murphy's Law, you should have a picture of my face right next to the definition. So the idea was to show you in real time. I wasn't going to make any cuts. I was going to just fast forward the video and you can see the full length. It took me 34 minutes to do that one side, the driver's side rear. And I did have a couple little hiccups that I hadn't prepared for, so that added some time. So it realistically 30 minutes is about all it really took or would have taken me. However, what happened was that when I was putting it back together, the emergency brake pad literally exploded in a sense. The pad started breaking off. So after all was said and done, I went to the front, and when I was doing that, another issue came up. And what happened in that case was that I noticed that the brake hose itself, I don't know how, had become so worn, like it had somehow been pinched or something. It was worn so far through that I don't know how that hose hadn't ruptured. So that pretty much stopped everything, and I've since ordered replacement parts. And there's going to be a follow-up video. I'll try to release them both at the same time of me fixing the previous problems and then the current issue, and we'll go from there. And oh, I should mention also that while I got all done bleeding brakes, all of a sudden I lost my pedal. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought maybe I didn't bleed it correctly. So I had somebody do a pedal push. Well, like I said, the pedal was just going straight to the floor. And right away I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be the power booster. Well, every video I watched that gave you symptoms did not say anything about a pedal going straight to the floor. They kept saying it was something else. Well, I've come to the conclusion I believe that is actually what's wrong, and I'll show you in the next video why I think it is the booster. Generally what happened was you can hear a hissing sound. There's a sound when you push the pedal, you can hear a little bit of air escaping, but what I noticed is if you start the engine, you run it for a little bit, you turn the car off and you go inside the engine compartment, you can hear a hissing sound of vacuum basically leaking out. So at some point, probably because of me pushing and now that everything's harder and working better, I think it must have somehow ruptured it. Because I did the initial tests of checking vacuum lines, trying to check the the check valve. That's like one of the first things you check. No, the vacuum seems good. It doesn't seem like the hoses are leaking. It's coming out of the power booster. So I've ordered all the parts, and the next video is going to be me fixing those problems, and we'll kind of go back to square one of let's see if that's the issue and we get the brakes going. So I'll see you in the next video.